Hello, world. It's your favorite politically conscious puppet, Jasmine Acosta, here on the Handmade for Change podcast to discuss how to get involved in civic life after college. I know what you're thinking. Can a puppet really understand the intricacies of democracy? Well, let me tell you, folks, when you live your life with a hand up your back, you get a pretty clear view of how the world works and how it doesn't. Now, just between you and me, like many individuals before college, I didn't really care too much about being civically engaged beyond voting during national elections. It was just the way I grew up. Engaging in civic life was never something that was discussed or encouraged at all. If anything, I grew up in a community that fully believed that boycotting, protesting, and voting were all a waste of time. They didn't think that anything they did could bring about real change, and so they chose not to engage with anything. I don't think this experience is unique either. This belief resonates with many Americans today, and that can especially be seen in the lower voter turnout. It was through college that I was exposed to the reality of civic life. Slowly but surely, I was given the language to understand the importance of things that my community saw as useless. When living in a democracy, one cannot just ignore the world and hide away in a cottage. In order to protect your rights and ensure the continuation of democracy, one has to participate in it however possible, whether that be from volunteering within an organization or supporting/ participating in community events. Democracy is not a spectator sport, even for those of us made up of glue and fabric. I'm not the only one who is civically impacted by going to college. This trend has been seen countless times in different articles and studies. According to the article, The Effects of Community-Based and Civic Engagement in Higher Education by the American Association of Colleges and Universities, each year of college and each degree earned correlates with increased levels of voting, volunteering, and donating to nonprofits. In general, each year of college increases the probability of voting by 7.7%. Now, why is that? Well, in college, people are challenged to interact with people outside of their community. They personally interact with people of different racial and cultural backgrounds. Students are also challenged through assignments and projects to take a deeper look at everything that is happening around them, whether it be in the world or just in their community. I myself, as a political science major, am challenged by my classes to immerse myself and have discussions about certain issues, such as human rights, civic engagement, and more. Some classes also push students out of their comfort zone and force them to volunteer with local organizations or create pieces of media that they never would have done if they were not given the language and the resources that colleges offer. Having real conversations could break down stereotypes, build empathy, and make social issues feel personal instead of abstract. In some, colleges encourage students to recognize inequalities, care more deeply about justice and fairness, vote/engage civically, etc., because they give students the needed skills, networks, and social norms to feel like they can actually make a change. But what happens when graduation comes? How can a person continue to get involved in civic life after college? Well, the first step is spending time and effort to stay informed on what's going on in your community. That means reading local articles, reaching out to local organizations that matter to you. You won't be able to depend on your professors or classmates to inform you about local protests or movements. You're going to have to do it on your own. Now, in the past, whenever I've said this, I've had some people say to me, "Well, I don't have anything I care about." That's just simply not true. Everyone believes in something. Everyone has something that they want to pursue or protect. If you're working in construction, don't you want to ensure you're being protected? If you're a parent, don't you want your children to get the best education possible? These are all things you can advocate for. Being civically engaged does not mean you have to stand on a big stage or lead a protest. It can simply mean standing up for yourself, your family, or your community. Civic engagement is about recognizing that your voice matters, because it does. Even if it starts small, even if it feels personal, what you care about is worth protecting, and when you act on it, you are not only speaking up for yourself, you are also giving others permission to care and act too. Some other ways to get involved are attending local city council meetings, school board meetings, starting and signing petitions, writing letters to your elected officials, joining civic organizations such as the League of Women Voters, Humankind, etc. Remember, being civically engaged is a choice you make every single day. College builds civic habits, and now it's your job to maintain them. Make civic action a part of your routine. And speaking of getting involved, today's guest knows all about it. She's someone who doesn't just talk about making a difference, she does it every single day. Let's welcome Lauren Kaler, who works with the Wichita Family Crisis Center, a local organization supporting women and families in crisis. And yes, she's also a puppet today. Welcome, Lauren. First off, how does it feel to be a puppet today?
It feels a little bit interesting. This is definitely not what I normally wear to work, but I'm excited to have a chat with you today.
Great. Can you tell us a little about yourself and what inspired you to get involved with the Wichita Family Crisis Center?
Yeah, I went to college at Wichita State, and while I was getting my degree, I switched majors a couple times and ended up majoring in criminal justice and took a couple classes regarding victims and victim services. And really, that's where I found my passion for working with nonprofits and going into the victim services field. So after I graduated, I applied for one of the advocate positions available at the Wichita Family Crisis Center back in January of 2022. I started out there in that position and really, really loved it. And then in about July of 2023, I moved over to the volunteer and communications role, which is great because I still get to work with this agency that I love and be involved with the program. But then I also get to help like on the sidelines with the volunteer things and fundraisers and other things like that. So,
What does a typical day look like for you working in this organization?
oh man, I'm every day is a little bit different. I would say typically most of my mornings are spent coming up with tasks for the volunteers that are either coming in that day or planning out tasks for volunteer groups that I have coming in. I also serve as one of the supervisors at the Wichita Family Crisis Center, so occasionally I will have to help with like if clients need assistance or if an advocate needs a supervisor for meetings or anything, I'm usually available to take those. And then during the afternoons is when it can get a little crazy around here. So typically I can help answer the hotline or help just in the shelter anytime that we need it. But really every day is different. Some days I leave at 5, some days I don't leave until about 7:30 or 8, just depending on the schedule that day. So.
Hmm. What kinds of impacts have you seen volunteers make at your shelter, even in a short time?
Volunteers make such a huge difference in the shelter and just around the office. I mean, typically they're here physically at the office for no longer than about 2 hours, depending on the volunteer. But the amount of work that they're able to get done in those hours not only takes the physical load of physical workload off of our advocates, and puts it on the volunteers. It also takes a lot of the mental load off of our advocates as well. If the advocates know that they can delegate tasks to me and then I can assign them to volunteers, that's kind of the last of their worries. They just are able to trust that they passed that task along to me and that I'm going to get it handled and they don't really have to worry about it. Volunteers just make the work at the Family Crisis Center like just so much more positive, and it's nice to see like all different faces around every week. And when the advocates get to know the volunteers, they really enjoy like talking with them and learning about their life and why they wanted to start volunteering at the Family Crisis Center. So, I mean, they just make such a big difference. And sometimes they're only here like sorting donations or doing laundry or picking up trash. And it might not feel like they're doing something very big, but I always tell people, especially volunteers, that whatever they're doing, just know that if you weren't here to do that, then one of our advocates would have to do it, and that's time taken out of their day, and their time taken out of their day that they could be working with clients, and now they have to do kind of smaller tasks that could be done by a volunteer. So.
Right. In your opinion, why is volunteering or civic engagement important, especially for young people after college?
Oh, I would say that it's just really important for young people, especially like between the ages of, I'd say like 18 to 20, 21, just to learn the importance of giving back and how that, in your involvement in your community can make such a big difference. I feel like that is kind of something that has gotten lost, especially like since COVID or even before that. is sometimes people forget that there's all these nonprofits and all these places that need volunteers like on a weekly or daily basis. And, it might take 1 to 2 hours of your day, but it can help them so significantly. And I would encourage, anyone that is wanting to pursue a career in nonprofits or in a field like this to kind of just volunteer wherever you can, find your niche, find where you fit in and where you want to end up long term. And that might change after a couple of years or so, but you'll still feel like you'll know that you gave back and that you made a difference in that agency.
How can volunteering at places like women's shelters help people become more aware of social issues they might not have otherwise seen?
That's a really good question. I would say, like, something I hear a lot from the volunteers that work with me at the Wichita Family Crisis Center is the typical victim that they might picture in their head is going to be very different from the clients that they interact with at our shelter. I feel like sometimes our perception of vulnerable populations can get really skewed and really like narrowed in from what we see on like social media and television and movies and things. And when you actually get involved and immerse yourself into a nonprofit or other agency that works with that specific population, you'll probably find out that whatever you had in your head of the work you would be doing or the people you would be working with are probably going to be very different. One thing that like specifically volunteers have mentioned to me several times is, we work with victims of human trafficking, and our grants specifically only allow us to work with people who are victims of intimate partner violence. So we are only able to work with people who were in an abusive relationship with a current partner or a former partner. And I've had volunteers ask like, well, if your grants only fund intimate partner violence, how come you're able to work with victims of human trafficking? And I have to explain that, in most cases of human trafficking, the victim is going to know their trafficker and be in a committed relationship with them before the trafficking actually occurs. Mm-hmm. Because people a lot of times think what they see in TV and movies, it's random people getting snatched off the street and driven somewhere very far away, and it's a total stranger, when in reality that's really not the case. No one's really denying that happens, but majority of the people you're going to see that are victims of human trafficking were probably in a relationship with their trafficker before anything started. So anyways, that is just one thing that I know that volunteers have mentioned to me a couple times, that they're like, oh my gosh, I had like no idea that, that was kind of a more common scenario you might run into. I only kind of knew what I've seen in movies or on Facebook of, people getting taken in parking lots and things like that.
Right. So. What advice would you give to a recent graduate who wants to stay civically involved but doesn't know where to start?
If you don't know where to start, I would just say to do a little bit of everything. I ask every volunteer that comes into my email or across my desk, like, how did you hear about us? And most of them just say that they Googled volunteering in Wichita and that we were one of the names that popped up. And honestly, that's pretty much the easiest way you can get involved, is just, again, reach out, find your niche. Don't be afraid to try new things. If it's not something that you can see yourself doing long term, there's no shame in switching into another nonprofit or another industry. So I would just say to try as many different things as you can. Encourage your friends to do it with you. That can always make it really fun. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Everyone, give a round of applause to Lauren for joining us here today and proving that you don't need to be a human to make a real impact. In fact, sometimes it's better if you're made out of polyester because you can work through the rain. Remember, listeners, colleges build civic habits by pushing students to interact with different communities and ethnicities, connecting them with different organizations, and making them take a deeper look at the world around them. While college builds these habits, it's your job to maintain them. Connect with local organizations, vote nationally and locally, attend local city council meetings, sign petitions, and stay informed. By staying informed, you can continue to care. Democracy needs you. Puppets, people, everyone. Before my consciousness disappears, make sure to check out local organizations near you and reach out to them. If you're in the local Wichita area, volunteermatch.org is a super helpful website you can use to browse local organizations to get in contact with them. Just like Lauren said, don't be afraid to reach out to different organizations and see which one is the right fit for you. Thank you for tuning in to the Handmade for Change podcast. I'm your host and favorite politically conscious puppet, Jasmine Acosta, reminding you we might be stuffed with fluff, but our voices are packed with power. Speak up.